Hello everyone and welcome to the latest Handyman in the field. This week we are going back to the tools. The last two videos that I've done, I'm going to build on that. The videos I did in the past about, one I said what's in my toolbox, and then the other one was the tools I carry with me but don't use all the time. Today we're going to be talking about the tools and items, not just tools, that I always have in my truck. So it builds on what I've already talked about. So there are certain aspects that I'm not going to dive into when it comes to when we get to the toolbox and the other tools. But there's a lot of other items that I want to show off what I have in the truck and what I always carry with me so that I don't have the stuff. Obviously, this is only going to work or make sense if you have a truck. If you don't have a truck and you have a van, you probably have a lot more in the van. Eventually, down the line, when my business gets to the point of having a bigger vehicle that has all of the different things in it, it'll have a lot more in it, a lot more readily available tools. A lot of the power tools that I have are located in these cabinets behind me, which at some point maybe we'll get to. But I want to specifically talk about the things that I always have on me and I don't ever have to worry about not having with me. Some of these items are things such as specific power tools. Some of these things are supplies that I've learned over the time. It's just good to have them. A lot of these things are things that help you in a pinch, or general consumables, or as I call them, field supplies that you really do need to have in order to make sure that you can just complete jobs on a regular basis. A lot of the stuff that I have in my truck on a regular basis are things that I can perform pretty much any normal, day-to-day job with me. If it's a job where it's something specific, I will add certain things to, what I bring with me for the day. But today we're specifically talking about what I have with me if I was ready to leave in the morning and I didn't put a thing in my truck. What do I always have in my truck with me so that I could do the work that I typically do? So we're going to dive into the truck. We're going to go through stuff that I've got in the front seat, things that I've got in the back, which is the majority of my tools. The front seat pretty much stays open because sometimes I have a worker working with me that rides up front. But there are a couple of little things that I'll point out that I always have with me. And then obviously it's kind of a tour, a truck tour as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Let's jump into it. All right, so we're on the passenger side, but I'm going to kind of delve into a little bit of this here and there. So I mentioned this in This Week in the Field episode, but I have a 2026 Chevy Silverado High Country. I used to have a 2023 Z71 Chevy Silverado, and I upgraded a couple months back. Specifically, there was a couple of features that I wanted, but the main thing is this screen right here. This screen is super helpful when it comes to, being able to find where you need to go. One of the reasons I've been hesitant about getting any other sort of vehicle, at least for the purposes of me being able to drive around, is because I don't really want something that I don't have a screen. Yes, you could go the route of having your phone use it as a GPS. That's just not what I would prefer to do. So it's nice to have this. The one catch is that this truck sometimes has some issue with Android Auto, which I have an Android phone connecting. So this is an adapter that will always connect the phone itself. That also supercharges the phone as well, so I never have to worry about that. We've got a pair of sunglasses down here. Most of everything else is pretty straightforward. I do keep some miscellaneous things in here. There's an extra charger. There's an extra knife. There's a Gerber. There's another charger. There's a lighter in here. Most of this stuff I don't use. It's more of like a just in case kind of situation because I have all of this stuff in my toolbox. I'm not going to necessarily open up the glove box, but the glove box, I keep a bunch of napkins in case I have to, I get a bloody nose or I have to, pack something up as far as like packing, I cut my finger or something like that. I need to be able to throw some paper towels on it and then tape it up. I also keep a hat in there. I rarely ever wear it, but I have it. Over there, you can barely see it, but there's always an extra bottle of water. In the door itself, I've got a couple pairs of gloves, and I also have what they call, well, some people call it a neck gaiter. I use it as almost a bandana to try to keep myself from sweating all over my face when I'm in there. In the middle console, always keep a notepad. There's a pen in here. I like this specific type of notebook. It's Right in the Rain, which it's waterproof paper. And then the pen itself is also Right in the Rain pen, which means if you had to take notes while it was raining, you'll be fine because the pen and the paper work. I also have just gum. It's always great to have good smelling breath when you're talking to customers. Cards, business cards that I have readily available. I also have my chapstick in here for when my lips are getting burnt, earbuds, extra other stuff. There's some miscellaneous snacks and stuff down there. I actually have my winter hat in there, even though I should have taken it out, but that's basically the gist in here. I always have a shaker bottle with water. It's just additional water, and I always drink that throughout the day. And then underneath my driver's seat, I have two things. I have protein powder and electrolyte packets. And then I also have it's called a Hercules towel. And it's a super absorbent towel where if I needed to, I could pull it out, throw it on the seat, and not have to worry about my seats getting super drenched because of that. So that's pretty much everything up on this side, or on this side of the vehicle, I should say. So let's head to the back. All right, so getting into the back seat, first things first, I always have in the summer, I always have sunscreen in the door. In the winter, don't keep a can of sunscreen in your door because it could freeze and burst. This is how I keep my truck. So the seats are typically up. I can put the ladder. This is a Gorilla ladder, step ladder. It's about 4.5 feet, I think, from the second step. I like this ladder because it has the platform steps, which is a lot easier on your feet rather than a normal ladder. Anyway, I could take the ladder and I can throw it in the bed of the truck. I could take the crate, throw that in the back of the truck, and then this seat right here, this single seat, can pop down if I needed to have an extra person jump in there. Right here, we've got a pretty decent sized drop cloth. Over here, I've got a smaller drop cloth. There's a pocket, or like not a hidden pocket, but there's a pouch back here that has some ratchet straps in it, tie down straps. And I also have a small first aid kit. On the other side, which we'll get to all of this stuff in a second, but on the other side, in that like seat pocket, there is a extra shirt and a pair of flip-flops in case I got my shoes completely muddy. And then let's jump over to here. So this crate is typically, this is where I put the materials for the day. Any special tools that I need for the day, they make it into this crate. I've got my tablet here, which I tend not to use that often, but I do have it just in case. In the off chance that I have some downtime while my employees are doing stuff, I can work on some other things using that tablet. This is the bag that I use on a regular basis. It's just a simple Milwaukee flat bag. It's got a couple little pouches on the sides. And basically what I do is, if you watch the previous video of the toolbox, this is the toolbox. Nothing's changed in it since the last time we talked, but when I am going into something, let's say I am going in for a ceiling fan, I'll grab the needle nose pliers, the wire strippers, I'll grab a knife to open the box, possibly the scraper, my the small electric screwdriver right here, the vessel. I'll sometimes grab the Milwaukee screwdriver as well because it has the other bits in it. And then a tester. And then that's pretty much all I need for this, from this box to go do a ceiling fan. It'll all go inside of that bag. And then when I come back, I'll just put it all out and swap it out with the next, set of stuff that I need. So that's the mentality of how I run what I do, but that it just works for me. All right. So then the other things we've got back here is we've got the Milwaukee Packout vacuum. This vacuum, it's great, but it does get clogged pretty easily. So I'm hoping that at some point they come out with a newer version. I know they have a dust separator that they had as an attachment for the larger Milwaukee vac. Right here, we've got a blower, the Milwaukee blower. You'd be surprised how often you use that, even if you're not doing that much. Blowing off the sidewalk makes a big difference at the end of what you're doing. If you're doing caulking around an exterior door, you're scraping stuff around an exterior door because you're doing a storm door replacement, having the blower just leaves everything in a nice clean fashion. Jumping over to this bag, this is what I call my cleaning bag. It's basically, I got a small dustpan and broom. I always have a tub of wipes. We've got some trash bags, and then there's another drop cloth in there. Normally there's a bunch of rags, but today specifically we used all the rags, so that's going to get replenished after they get cleaned later on. Keeping in mind, obviously some of these things, they use the same type of batteries. That's a convenience. So there's always a 6.0 battery in the vacuum. I always have a 5.0 battery in the blower. We've got an M12 battery here in the installation drill driver. So those 3 batteries right there. I also have more batteries on the other side, but we'll get to those. But at any given moment, I could always take a battery out of the vacuum and use it for the blower. Take a battery out. I've got a nailer over there. I've got an extra battery in there. I can take the battery out of that, throw it into there. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to being able to use the batteries for different things. The only thing I don't have, I have, let's see, 4 M18 batteries in here at any given moment. And then I have got 2 M12 batteries at any given moment as well. So that's what's here. So then the other thing to talk about is what we've got down here, which I've got a tarp. The jack for the truck itself is in here. I've got a 2-foot Stanley level. I've got a 4-foot Milwaukee level. I've got a straight edge, and then I have the Purdy Power Lock extension stick, but it's the smaller of the group, which I think it's only like 2 feet or a little over 2 feet, but it extends out to 4 feet, this sucker. I love this thing. There's pretty much no painting job that I would be able to, that I couldn't do with this stick. Obviously, if you've got a much bigger ceiling or a much bigger area, you're going to probably want the larger stick. But I love that stick because if there's something that I can't reach, I can typically reach it with that stick. So that's what's down there. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot else on this side. So let's jump over to the other side. All right, so on this side, I think I showed part of this in one of my previous videos. I was talking about this specific box right here. This is the box that we focused on the second tool video that I did, which is the tools that I have with me but don't use all the time. But it's part of this entire stack. So this is a custom base that I built specifically so that I could mount a Milwaukee pack-out bracket here to have all of this so that it wouldn't shift around. Below the bracket, I made a small compartment so that I could have a couple of specific things that I use on a regular basis. So right here, we've got the M12 Milwaukee M12 oscillating tool. I've got a huge variety of blades in there and also sanding pads. We've got the M18 brad nailer in this one right here. There's an extra battery in there. And then I've got about 4 different types of nails, different sizes, some exterior, some interior, and that all sits right inside of this pouch. So it's the exact same pouch as I use for my, the tools that I bring in with me, but it just collapses and sits in here real nice. And then on top of that, it just slides in. Same thing with this one. This is a different pouch, but again, everything fits in it real nice. So then we've got the drawers, which I'll get to in a second. This right here is the Milwaukee socket set. In here, I've got, SAS and it's all wet in here because it was raining earlier. Metric and SAE, they're all deep. And then this is actually a Husky socket that extends and also bends at various angles. That's what's in there. But like I said, I'm pretty sure I already talked about that one, but that stays in there. But then there's 2 other boxes, and these are the boxes we're going to dive a little bit more into. So the first one is the drawers, and I'll talk about what's in the drawers. And then the other one is this supply or field supply bin that I have. So we're going to dive into that as well. So we'll start off with the drawers. All right, so we went and got some extra light because I knew that this was going to be a problem because of just how dark it is in my garage. But So this is the bottom drawer. So in this drawer, we've got a number of different things. This is the XL shim bag. This is great for lifting up, appliances in small spaces, cabinets, also, getting doors to just the right spot. As you remember from the box that we covered up here, this box has got two smaller ones, but this is the bigger one. This is much easier to use for the doors. So we've got that. Then we've got, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, and I know I'm going to get corrected. I call it a mallet, but I know that the reason it's not, I know that there is an actual rubber mallet. These are just non-marring edges. I use these a lot when I need to knock things into a certain spot, but I don't want to damage anything. I don't want the metal. I have never actually replaced these heads, but I know that they can be unscrewed and you can replace them. I just have never done it. So we've got that. A number of different tubes of caulk. We've got white silicone, that's always there. We've got white caulk that's paintable, mostly for painting or other things, small repairs, things like that. We've got clear silicone. We got clear silicone. It's going to keep falling. I really like this DAP Ultra Clear. I use this whenever I'm doing GFCI outlets on the outside of a house. I'll use this. One, because it dries pretty quick. You don't have to worry about it, and it can also be painted. I never had a situation where I've actually painted it, but I appreciate the fact that it can be painted because you can use it in small spots. And then the last one we've got is silicone glue. As you can see from the collection of tubes, they're all squeezed tubes. The reason that is because I like being able to reuse stuff, and I don't want to necessarily have to pull out the caulk gun, force some smaller stuff. So then jumping over to some of the other things, we've got a right-angled bit holder. This thing comes in pretty clutch sometimes, but again, it's not something that I use on a regular basis, but it's handy to have, so it's just always in the box. We've got one of the extra batteries. Like I said, the nailer has another one, which makes this 4. And then we've got the Franklin stud finder. This thing, I've used a lot of stud finders over the years, and this stud finder is it is the best stud finder I've ever used. It's not to say that there can't be better ones. I've spent money on more expensive ones, and I just have not had as good of luck as I have with that one. We've got a Milwaukee Impact, which I have a newer one, a Fuel. I just haven't swapped it out because this one's not dead yet, so it's just there. We've got a square, and we've got a carpenter square here, an extra bit. This one's really just to pop into the Impact if I need it. And then there's a socket adapter as well for the Impact if I need it. So that's that. Then we jump over to these cases. So this case is something that I bought. It's mostly, the only time I really use this is for furniture assembly. It's a lot of different small bits, but you can put them in very weird angles, and it's ratcheting. I know that there's a lot of companies that make this. This is just something I found on Amazon, where it's just convenient because I can use the Allen wrench bits to build furniture a lot quicker than the dumb Allen wrenches that they give you in the packs. I don't do a lot of furniture building, but occasionally it happens where I have to tighten things up. This is just drill bits. A lot of the bits, I always use titanium bits. You can see some of them are missing because they've either broken or they need to be replaced. But I always have a set of bits. Then we also have, the next one we've got is kind of a miscellaneous. These are essentially extra bits or extension bits of things that I definitely use on a regular basis. So like these are all T25 bits. There's a one flathead. I think there's a T27 or a T30 in there. We got a couple of Phillips, a bunch of extension ones, magnetic. These sockets are the most common ones you'll use for installing wall mounts for TVs. So this compacted bin is for specifically that. This last one is boring bits. Again, there's a couple in here that I probably need to replace, but I don't use them all that often. Actually, yeah, it's the 3/4. The 3/4 has got chipped on it. And then I've got the extension in here too, but this is a nice little set that has what I would typically use on a regular basis. The last thing we've got in this specific box is this bag. These are, again, a lot of things that I don't use on a regular basis. There's actually a whole set of Allen wrench is in there. And then there's a couple of additional adapters, but most of it is stuff that I rarely ever use. You can see that there's an outlet adapter here that allows you to ground. And then I think there's a alligator socket bit, which if you are unaware of what that is, it's one of those ones that has, or no, actually that's in the other one. This one has got a super magnetic bit, so that if I don't lose something if I'm high up on a ladder. So that's what's in that one. So let's get into the next drawer. All right, so we're back at the desk because I want to make sure that you guys can actually see this with the proper light. But this is a thin profile Milwaukee organizer. And it basically has a variety of different things that I use on a regular basis, or things that I don't necessarily, if I'm in a pinch, customer says, can you take care of this real quick? I have what I need. Most of the time, the most common thing that I get asked if I can do is, can I hang a picture? So right here, we've got a bunch of different specific nails, washers, hooks, all different things that I would use specifically to hang pictures. And that's because, like I said, that is the most common thing that people will ask me to add on to something. And when you suddenly say, oh, you know what, I don't have a nail, I can't do that, that you're gonna look like a fool. So there's that. These are all miscellaneous screws. These screws specifically, it's just basically a catch-all of all kinds of different types of screws, different colors, things like that. These are all brackets and washers. These are things that you don't know you need until you need, so it's nice to have. We've got decking screws and larger, a bunch of different types of different screws. There's a couple of small lags in there, different size screws. This typically has a lot more drywall screws. I had to pillage this a little while ago because I needed them. Here we've got some more screws, longer ones. I've got gutter screws. This is mostly for commercial properties because the residential properties will have colored screws. These are more for commercial where they're not as big of, they don't have as big of a concern. Wing nuts, which I barely ever use. Wagos, which I know a lot of people have opinions about Wagos. I think that they come in clutch plenty of times and they're worthwhile. These are my go-to when it comes to actual, wire connectors. This is what I prefer. I do have generic wire connectors. I also have some minor things that I have for, if I notice that there's some Romex that's being ran through an electric box but doesn't have a protector, I've got those to install. A couple of ground nuts. There's also some ground screws here. Some of the stuff just gets mixed up, but these are electrical screws, two different sizes, different sizes. We've got register vent screws and then gutter screws in different colors. That's in there. We've got some larger wood screws. These come in handy sometimes for door repairs. I keep putting you guys out of focus. We've got spacers, a variety of different spacers that you could use if you're having issues with electric boxes not being plumbed because of tile. This is the stuff that comes in handy. These are great because you can trim these down to be whatever size you need. And these are great because you can build them to whatever you need. But I have both. I actually prefer these. I think they're all on Amazon, to be honest. In this one, we've got a bunch of door screws, different colors, all different things you would use for hinges or latches, things like that. Down here, it's just a bunch of anchors. We've got generic anchors. We've got the anchor, some of the anchors that come with, wall mounts. These, the only time you'd ever use these, honestly, is if you were going in concrete or something like that. Other anchors, these are drywall anchors. I'm actually missing a bunch of extra drywall anchors. Toggle bolts, because again, these are the things that people need a lot of the time. Toggle bolts specifically to focus on tightening up a loose toilet paper holder or a towel ring or something like that. A little bit of Velcro, a little bit more wire in here. And then we've got a bunch of different types of zip ties, different sizes, different colors, because you never know when you might need those. So that's basically the box, but pretty much the majority of the stuff that I have that I would need at a last minute notice, can be found in here. Like I said, there's a couple of things that are mixed up, which makes me think I need to do a little bit reorganizing or checking, because especially the drywall screws being empty. I think I've said this before, but I do have specific hardware boxes for very specific things. I have a full box full of decking screws at different sizes and colors. I do have a full box of drywall screws at different sizes and colors. I do have a box of nothing but electrical supplies. I do have a box of just anchors and toggle bolts and all kinds of different sizes and shapes and weights and capacities and things like that. So I also have a box full of nothing but the picture hanging items. So the wire, picture wire, screws, nails, all the stuff you would typically use. And eventually we'll get to some of those boxes down the line, but today I just wanted to focus on the stuff that we're doing inside the truck. So then that is this box. All right, and the final thing that I meant to show you earlier, but I completely forgot about, is these. These are probably by far, in my opinion at least, the best things you could put on your feet if you had to do work consistently. And the reason why is because these things slide onto your feet perfectly. You have to get them obviously sized. There's a size guide that you buy, when you buy these, just so everyone knows. Yuli's by Hex Armor. But the size, there's a size guide, and you take your boot, you measure your boot, and then you find the exact size of your boot. But these things are perfect if you're in a cold climate. In the winter, there's a lot of snow, a lot of moisture on the ground. These come in super clutch, because the reason why is because if you have to go out to the truck a bunch of times, it's perfect to have these when you come back in, so you're not having to figure out how to wipe the stuff off your feet constantly. You just leave these right inside the door, slide them back on as you go. I mean, legitimately, these things, like I used to have other boot covers. These things are awesome. You literally slide your foot in, clicks in, automatically on. It's literally that easy. You just literally click your foot in, it suctions on. To take it off, you just kick the back, comes off super easily. It's all gripped. Those things are amazing. Best protection item that I've ever bought when it comes to, keeping customers happy is having these things. So these are just inside of the truck themselves. I just keep them right underneath the seat. It's just because we're in the summer, I don't use them often, so I wasn't even thinking about them, but they're just down there underneath the seat. So those are probably, like I said, one of the most clutch things you could have. All right, so with all of that being said, that is everything that I keep in my truck. In the back of the truck, I don't keep anything on a normal basis. To be honest, the back of the truck, while I do have a truck cover that covers, or a bed cover that covers the bed, I don't actually keep anything in the back of the truck, mostly because that stuff is for swapping things out. If I have to haul away something that I installed, I try to keep that space completely open for that. If I need bigger tools, they go in there and then I use the truck cover to make sure that they're, not seen by the wandering eye outside of a Home Depot. That's the biggest thing is, it's nice to have the extra space when you need it, but if you keep stuff in there constantly, like years ago when I had a truck early on in the business, I thought about getting a deck box, and I'm sure some of you know what those are. And I thought about keeping all of my stuff rather than in the back of the truck, keeping it in the deck box. As time progressed, I realized that probably wasn't the best option, so I decided to go a completely different route and then customize a lot of the stuff that I did in the back of the truck. That said, it's important to note that everybody's going to have their own thing. Everybody's going to do their own thing. It's what's best for you. I show you guys this stuff so that way you can get some ideas on what could work for you. But I would love to know some of yours. If you guys have a video out there floating around on the internet that you'd like to share with me to give me ideas. I mean, I've watched a variety of truck tours and van tours and box truck tours and all that, showing different ideas. And that's how I get some of the ideas that I implemented in my own truck. So you could certainly carry a lot more stuff, than I carry. I don't carry a lot of power tools. Like I said, I carry the installation drill driver. I have the blower, the vacuum, the brad nailer, and an oscillating tool. Those are the things that I tend to use more than anything else when on a job site. If I'm going somewhere and I need a circular saw, I'll know it ahead of time and then I can throw it into that crate. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know that some of my other tool videos that are out there have you guys have enjoyed. If you are more curious about the tools that I have with me that are in that one box on top of the pack out drawers, there's a whole video that we'll post up a link here for. And if you're curious about the tools in the toolbox, that will be posted up here. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what I'm missing that you think would be super helpful. I've tried to narrow it down, but I'm sure that there's things in there that could be helpful that I'm not even thinking about on a regular basis. There's always tools that I, swap in and out on a regular basis because it's something that I could find to make my job more efficient. Or I should say my job's more efficient, because that's what I'm trying to do. That stuff is stuff that I use on a regular basis for most of my jobs. So with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Greatly appreciate you guys have been watching The Handyman in the Field. I've been Dustin, and we'll see you guys next time.